Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. You're in for a real treat today. Before I introduce them, here's a quote just for this episode. Continuity is not the absence of change, but the ability to adapt without losing your essence.
Mm.
Our guest today is a trusted advisor, a leader in a community you may not even be aware of that exists in the world, someone that helps family businesses and businesses alike internationally. Dr. Jean Meeks-Koch, a fellow of the Family Firm Institute, is how I was blessed to meet and make her acquaintance. Background in organizational systems, and has taught at universities like Oregon State and University of Oregon, as well as Concordia and the like. And I'm so excited to learn about what succession is and continuity is, and how you, Gene, Dr. Koch, work with families all over the world. Also, the CEO of Generations Continuity Consultancy. So we can get into that as well. Generational Continuity Consultancy, and the founder of Positively People. Thank you for coming on and introducing this topic. The first guest yet to introduce this amazing topic to our audience.
So thank you, Jay, for inviting me on this. I'm really excited. It's a area I'm very passionate about. I've been passionate about for over 20 years now. And I like how you said that, continuity deals with the essence. It's the continuation of the essence of who you are, what you founded, what you inherited, and what you believe. So I think that's really powerful statement right there. So great way to start a good conversation. So looking forward to it.
For those that are not familiar with the topic at hand, they're in business, they work for an organization, or maybe they founded one. What what is family continuity training or development or advisory, or am I even framing the question properly? How do we introduce this topic to those that may not be familiar with it? Yeah, on the yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting area. So working with family-owned businesses that slowly evolve over time to want to maintain their family essence, their family roots, and continue on generationally. So generational continuity, one generation after another, and even now what we call intergenerationally. It's fairly new discipline. So when we think about things like management of business, business management, business administration, finance, those have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? But deep diving into family owned businesses where we either own the business together or we're working in the business together as family members. It's a relatively new discipline. It's really only been in existence, I'd say, less than 50 years, where
Wow.
we're really marrying the logical side of business and finance and accounting and law and governance with family dynamics, the psychology of how families are together in relationship. And that in itself is a very big subject. Absolutely.
So in some sense, would you say it's a topic that anyone that's listening to this could get something of value from it, if it's in the family context? Or is
I
it?
would, yeah, I would definitely say so because number one is we all start out within some type of a family structure. You're born into a family, right? Again, it might be a single parenting family, a double parenting family, unusual dimension of family where you might be adopted, you might be being taken care of by a different family member, but in some element there's family, and family in itself is a big topic. How do you define family? Who is family? And as we are well into the 21st century, our definition of family is continually evolving and changing and expanding. It has boundaries, maybe cultural boundaries, depending where you are in the world, tribal boundaries, religious boundaries, just a cacophony of all kinds of boundaries. But I look at it with the individual. How do you define family? What does family mean to you?
What is the purpose of the family advisory or that synthesis of family? And you mentioned finance, business, law, governance, right? I'm thinking prior to this discipline, what's the purpose of integrating the two for that family business? What's the actual purpose of the discipline?
Yeah, it's so fascinating because family businesses, I would say, are businesses where family members work together or own together or work and own together or are are impacted by the working of a family member in their business with another relative. And that just brings a different dimension. Like if you were to go and work at a company and it was not family owned. It was a traditional owned by a group of, non-related stockholders governed by a board. You leave that experience, you leave that day job, and you're not going to have Thanksgiving dinner with them, or you're not going to go have Hanukkah with them, or Diwali with them. You're not going to be with them again, right? You go to your family, right? And you're involved with whatever that family means to you on a personal level. So there's a lot of separation between your personal life and what you do in your work a day life, right? Even though I think there's a lot of companies and a lot of cultures out there, we turn around and we say, we're working and our work is also our family, right? We try to create some cultural connections, some bonds in the workplace to make it really a pleasant, fulfilling part of our life. But when you're with a family owned business, your roots run way beyond, your roots run generationally, ancestrally deep together. And you will overlap not only in your professional or workaday life, but also in your personal life. It's hard to not overlap those two in some form or function.
Wow. Well, what comes to mind, what place does ritual have in the family business dynamic, or what role does ritual play? Um,
Wow, I mean, that's a topic that I'm really getting into studying. So I've been doing work now in East Africa now since 2022. That
wow.
brings in the other company that we have in East Africa that services Africa. And I'm leading a virtual study group for Africa through the Family Firm Institute. And one of the things is we're really looking at tribalism, culturalism, ritualism, and how those factor in and create very different dynamics in family owned enterprises or family owned businesses in the continent of Africa. And people forget that Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent of 53, give or take, on what day you're counting, countries. And within each country, there's a lot of different influences. So, for example, in Kenya alone, there are 52 registered tribes in Kenya alone. And those tribes have different rituals, different customs, different cultural ancestries that are important to them and how they work amongst their family communities. So it has a big impact wherever you are in the world. Ritual comes into play, right? Where ritual in a non-family business environment doesn't really come into play in the same way, right? It's not rooted through years and years and years, right?
Hmm. For the, what are some of the concerns or obstacles that our listeners that are founders of businesses could be facing that they're not even yet aware that there's headwinds, or they're in the midst of something that they won't see for some time. We have many entrepreneurs that listen to the show, self-starters. They
Yeah.
have these business, maybe their children are not yet old enough to be involved, or like, what are some headwinds that they may be facing? They're not even aware that they're in the midst of.
It's so interesting because when you're an entrepreneur, right? You've started a company, you're an entrepreneur. Many entrepreneurs get going, they're passionate, they're busy, they're in it day in, day out, they're building it, they're growing it. And oftentimes they don't recognize the impact it has on people around them. And the closer the people, which are typically family members, whether you're married, not married, have kids, don't have kids, have a significant partner, don't have a significant partner, it doesn't matter. You do have an effect, unless you're, in your own silo, your own box, and, kind of a little antisocial and you don't talk to anybody, right? You do have an effect on members within your familia society that are important to you, right? So you're impacting them without even knowing it. Your emotions, the way you're thinking, the way you're struggling, your celebrations of success, you are impacting them. And so realizing that the ripple effect emanating out of that business that you just started, say you're a startup entrepreneur and you've been in business 2 or 3 years, what impact are you having around the people that you're connected with? You have an impact every time you make a connection with them. And it's more significant, I think, if you happen to have a partner, you happen to have your own children. They're watching you, they're learning from you, they're experiencing you. So you do have an impact. And a lot of times we're too busy in the nuts and bolts of growing this passion of ours that we forget, what are we also role modeling in the process of doing that?
Are there things, whether that be ritual, story, some variables that entrepreneurs can be aware of today and start implementing to mitigate some of the potential lagging consequences of that journey later for their families? Are there things that they can pay attention to now while they're growing their businesses, and maybe they have a young family that is watching them, like you're saying? Are there things they could do to prepare for that next generation's maturity that you'd recommend? Or
Yeah, I think it's important to incorporate people that are important in your life early on, right? And start to be able to share, story tell and share. So let's just look at it in different ways. Say I'm an individual and I've started a tech company. I now am doing some coding, doing some app building, that kind of thing, right? And say I'm single. I'm not married. I don't have a partner. I don't have anything, but I still have a connection with my own family of origin or my nurtured family. You know, Providing a time to kind of share your story of how are you doing, what's happening in your world, what's happening in your life. I think that storytelling is important. uh, and again, as you evolve, say now you do happen to have a partner, right, and you do happen to have smaller children, being able to sit down in the comfort of a home space and sit on the floor and talk about, wow, what's this like? What are you learning? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? How do you go about sharing the story? And you can share the story to different members within your family community in different levels, depending on who the audience is. And I think family sharing becomes so important. I just was in East Africa. I uh, did a few things for a family that we've worked with for several years in a family retreat for their family-owned enterprise, and we had little fourth generations there, and just incorporating them into some of the celebrations, into some of the activities with the adults, hearing from a grandparent about the stories. It was so fun to watch this. And this one particular fourth generation who I back in 2022, she was only like 9 years old. So this is, almost 4 years later. And I've watched her kind of grow and watching how more attentive she is and how interested she is in learning and listening to the older family members about their shared experiences about this family enterprise. And knowing it really started when she was little, right? She was little, she was sharing the story. So there was one activity where the fourth generation, they were there for about 20 minutes and then they could go off and play and have a lot of fun, which is great. And she chose to want to stay and be
Hmm.
part of it with with the third and second generation and participate and listen, sit on the floor and be a part and listen. And I thought, wow, there's that growth and learning. It's because she was included at a young age.
What role, if any at all, does that or could that have with the formation of identity, a family member's identity?
I think it's huge with family and member identity because every family member in a family owned business or enterprise, they're not all going to work in the business. And maybe none of them will. Maybe they'll just inherit the business. Maybe they'll be just part of the memories of the business, right? But I think you want to form a healthy relationship with that business. Right. I think that's really important. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs, founders, each generation to realize the individual needs of each person and not have the
Hmm.
expectation that their identity is tied to this business, right? Or their identity is tied to this family. And to find a healthy balance between the collective whole of the family and the individual's individualized dreams, hopes, and aspirations, finding that healthy balance.
What role does the advisor play in that?
Mm. I think the role of the advisor is a fascinating role. And it's different in different generations, I would say. I
Hmm.
think the role of the advisor is to really be objective, um, and to be objective and understanding at the same time. So realizing that every family is different, right? They have different values, they have different norms, they have different roots, they have different ancestral DNA coming out. So they're all different. And to number one is within the family that you're working with is to recognize that they're unique of themselves. Okay. And so your approach is you might have ideas that worked well with other families, right? But you really have to take into account, okay, what's different about this family, what might work, what might not work, and never be prescriptive. I like to use the word co-create. So I think I like to be a co-creative advisor, realizing that I'm there to help you draw out the best in you and utilizing other experiences that I have had and being able to bring it and say, okay, what fits for you and what else do you have? And to appreciate it and then help them put various perspectives together into a perspective that will work well for all of them. So I always look at myself as a co-creator. So I think that's a big difference in ways we advise. So when I look at attorneys or I look at an accountant, there's laws that they have to follow, right? It's not that we don't have to follow laws. We have to work within the law. We have to be ethical. We have to be of integrity, all these things. But there's specific laws. When you go to an attorney, you're expecting them to draft a legal agreement that fits the legal law that you're in. You're going to them for their subject matter expertise. They're a subject matter expert, right? Same with an accounting firm, right? If they're going to do an audit, there's a subject matter expertise you're going to them for. I think with family enterprise advisory, we're subject matter experts. We understand our discipline, okay? But we're not there to impose a way of being on anybody. And I think that's the difference. To me, I'm a process advisor, a process consultant. I think that's really important. I help you process through the difficult differences in perspectives that we have, right? Because when you bring a family group together and a group of family owners, family members working in the business, family members with their own opinions of the business, we're like a beautiful diamond in the rough. There's many facets to it. And each family member is looking through possibly a different facet, and it's going to have a different reflection. So my role is to help the group that's looking through this diamond in the rough, right, and seeing it a little bit different, help them find the commonalities between them, help them find how the pieces all fit together so that we can carve out a really beautiful diamond together. So we can make the right, cuts, the right facets, so we can understand one another. I can't go in and be prescriptive and the one who knows it, right? I might have knowledge and I can share knowledge and share different things that have happened in different families and different research, but ultimately my role is to help facilitate the family to find what's best for them.
I've never thought of it in these terms, but this makes me, they are the subject and you're helping them
Mm-hmm.
find what matters, or
Right.
this
Yeah.
co-creation is, I think, brilliant.
Yeah. It really is co-created. And so often they really know, they just don't know how to say it. It was interesting. I was working with an Indian family, and a couple of the family members said to me, they said, Dr. Jean, one of our biggest problems is we're too respectful. I said, well, that's interesting. What does that mean to be too respectful? Well, culturally, we've been brought up to be respectful, so respectful that we're afraid of saying anything in fear of being disrespectful. I said, wow, that's a conundrum. Or that's like a Gordian knot, right? So my role here is to help you continue to be the respectful person you want to be, because this is your cultural basis of this deep level of respect for your elders, but also help you to say what you want to say in a way that you don't feel you've been disrespectful. So let me help facilitate how to draw that out of you. Let me give you ways to say something and you try them on and see how they fit,
Mm.
you know.
Now, your background and your master's in accounting and your thesis on in organizational systems, did you have a vision to do this work when you started, or did it happen just naturally from working in business advisory?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, so when I went on from accounting, from a master's in accounting, and went into org systems and focusing on behaviors, is I realized that I could have all the data, like all the financial data, I could spin numbers left and right. But if I couldn't get people to want to change their behavior and realign their systems, it didn't matter how much good data I showed them, they weren't going to do it. So that brought me on this journey for my PhD and why I went in that route. But I never planned to be a advisor. I never planned to be a consultant. Was just like nothing I was going to do. I was going to be a professor, right? And I was fortunate enough with my first opportunity to do some advising for the university to a family-owned business. And I fell in love with the difference of dealing with family, that dynamic brought into business. And that started to lead me to want to research it more, understand it more. And that just kind of continued to spin my passion and love for family. And I come from a very large family. I have 5 children of my own and 4 grandchildren. And just the importance of understanding and accepting differences, I think it to me became really an important quest for me. So even though I'm from a large family, there's 6 of us. I have two
Wow.
other sisters and 3 brothers. From my perspective, being in the middle, now my siblings wouldn't say the same thing. Different ones have different views of that rough done, right? To me, there was a lot of discord. You know, how I viewed the world was different than how my other siblings viewed the world. And what I really wanted to do as I continue to work with families is help them bridge their discord.
What role do family businesses play in the world's economies?
Oh, it's enormous. So it's just they have such an enormous impact, right? So we look here in North America, you know, the statistics I think are like close to 70% of businesses are family businesses or family-owned enterprises, right?
Wow.
And there, so again, multi-generation or even just the first or second generation, they're an enormous amount of the economy. You get outside of North America, you get into Central America, India, Asia, Africa. I mean, you're getting into upwards of 70 to 80% of those economies are driven by family-owned businesses, family-owned enterprises, right? So they are the economic engine. They're employing the majority of the populations there, right? So it's crucial that they have the tools to continue to make good decisions to be able to decide on their legacy. And their legacy might not be continuity. It might not be, you know, I want to evolve and it goes to the next generation. Their legacy might be, look, we sell, get acquired by a multinational or, you know, big global corporate, right? And it continues on, and we have a liquidity event. And in that liquidity event, then we can continue with that wealth to generate more, right? So it's helping them to get themselves aligned. So whatever their exit is in their generation, it's successful. And every generation will exit. So for those that are saying, well, I'm never going to exit, well, yeah, you're going to die one day. I hate to say it, you know, we will exit one day. So however we want to make that transition, yeah, let's make it in a way that feels fulfilling, feels right, it feels empowering versus holding on so tight that we squeeze the life out of something. And then nobody wants the business you started. Your heirs don't want the business, okay? Nobody wants to buy your business because you squeeze the life out of it, right? And it was interesting. I was just on a call with another family business here, and we were talking about the difference between founder entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. Okay. So an entrepreneur, founder entrepreneur, right? They start something up. They're excited. They start it up. They get it going. They're the wings going. They continue it on. They've got that vision. They're pushing it forward. They bring in the right people. They continue to grow it. And then it's something's going to exit. Something's going to happen, right? It's going to move on or evolve or whatever. A solopreneur is different. I think a solopreneur has a mindset. They start something, but they don't know how to let it go to grow. They hold it so tight, they're afraid to let anybody come in because there's only them and they have all the answers, all the right way. They have all the vision, all the answers, and all the execution. So it can only grow to a certain point under a solopreneur before the solopreneur can't do it all themselves, but they're so afraid to let it go to grow that they squeeze the life out of it. And then it's worthless, right?
What, where does meaning come into the conversation?
Say that one more time.
Where does meaning?
Wow, that's a big one. Where does meaning? I think that's so interesting because meaning, meaning is so deep in it. I think it's at the cellular level. So this is a word I like, cellular. This is where your logical brain and your passionate heart meet in the middle, right?
Wow.
It's your heart and your brain, and there you find meaning, right? There you find, wow, what does this mean to me? Right. What does it mean to me? What does it mean to those I love? What does it mean to my intimate group of people I love, the ripple of people I care about, my community, my society, humanity? What's the ripple effect? And I think meaning, how do you take that meaning of that, which you started, right? And I think things only have meaning when you have a vision of where you want them to bloom and grow. So I'll use an example. I have 5 children. And I look back at when they were an infant and now they're all grown. And I look and say, I had a vision for each of them. I had a vision that they would be human beings that had a joyful life, joyful of how they wanted to live it, that they had an environment that they felt they were loved and listened to. So I had these things that meant meaning. And now I can look and say, wow, my meaning has grown. And I look at their lives, right? And I'm fulfilled. I think the meaning I had with each child grew. Now I have meaning and purpose in what I do, which is what we have as our tagline, leaving it better for future generations. And I live that every single day. I don't want to just leave it, it's just not a marketing tagline. I don't want to just leave it better for future generations of the family I work with. I want to leave it better for the communities I work within. When I work in East Africa and Kenya, I know when I'm working with a family that that family, if it exists and continues on, they're employing people. Those people have families. They're building, a new level of being for everyone they touch in Kenya. They're giving back, right? So every generation I know I can touch. I also want to leave it better so we can bring in more practitioners and more advisors in this space, right? Because there is a need. There's a big need to understand and to help family-owned enterprises be able to continue to evolve and touch lives. They really touch lives.
How can someone listening know that they're ready for, you mentioned process,
Mhm.
co-creation process. So how can someone listening determine, how would one determine they're ready for a process like this if it, on the business family enterprise side of it?
That's a
When
really
is the
good
time?
question. Yeah, I think part of it is just really, I think especially say you're a founder entrepreneur and you're maybe into your business 5, 10 years. I think part of it is what's your vision for it? What's the vision? Have you gotten outside the business and started to work on the business and started to say, what's the vision for this 10 years from now in 2035? What does this business look like? What does this mean? What does this mean to me, to the people that are important to me, and define that and really get concrete around that. And then when you look at that and you look at where you're at today and where you want to be at by 10 years from now, you say, wow, it's a process to get from here, my current state, to my future state. Do I need support and help with that process? Do I need some assistance with helping me co-create the frameworks to help me move from here to here? I think those are easy questions as a business owner you can ask.
I have a million more questions, and I can't wait for the next time that we do this. I want to highlight the role of the advisor and maybe a bit of the career pathing or educational component. So, for example, you're a fellow of the Family Firm Institute. When I was doing research some time ago, I saw international organization, thousands of practitioners. Clearly, there's a huge impact there. So for our listeners that are in the helping professions that want to learn more about this broad, like you said, it's a broad profession with so much depth and impact. Where would one start? Um, and what would be your recommendations for the our listeners that are interested in that are in the helping profession? Maybe they're executive coaches or they're in consulting for organizations that they have an interest in the family niche expertise, and they may not have written a dissertation on organizational systems or got the background or taught at various universities. And, where would one start?
Yeah, I think two places. It's kind of there's two platforms that I would go after. So one is with the Family Firm Institute. So it's ffi.org. Okay, and again, it's a global network of practitioners, all different levels of practitioners, ones that are just starting out, ones that are just looking to be a member, looking to make networks and connections, from very seasoned fellows to academic institutions that are part of it that are doing research. So I think their standard is very high in what the quality is that they're providing within their articles, their webinars, everything like that. So I think that's a good spot. And, being an FFI fellow, I think we're good and friendly. We want to support others. We want to connect. We want to create study groups and provide good learning that we can all share. So I think, being a good colleague, I think that's part of our responsibility to those that are interested. So that's number one. Number two is I would also look in, if you're in the US or even in Canada, some of the other areas of the world, is look and Google family centers of excellence or family business centers. So in the US alone, there are a lot of excellent universities that have family business centers that they've started, okay? And they have programs. And those programs, many times the webinars, the programs are open to all different types of people to attend and to learn. So I know right here in South Carolina, where I'm based at, when I'm in the US, I'm based in South Carolina, we have the Family Enterprise Institute of South Carolina that's based out of Anderson University. I know my sister and colleague who's in Denver, they have the University of Denver's Denver University Bailey Center of Family for Families. So again, every state tends to have one or two, and see what's close to your area. I know Canada has several. I know in Europe and stuff, there are several in there. In Asia, the same thing. There's some in India. I know in Africa, we're getting our legs going. We're wheeling it up here. So hopefully we'll get a family center at one of the institutions. Actually, that's wrong. In Johannesburg, in South Africa, there is a family center at the Nelson Mandela University there. So they mostly focus on research, not so much on outside of research, but I know they're growing and expanding. So, yeah.
Dr. Jean Meeks-Koch, this has been really a pleasure. I have a million more questions. I can't wait to continue to go deeper and learn about continuity and family and um, legacy and so much more. I do have an ask, though, for those that are listening that want to get connected with you. What's the fastest, most prudent way to contact you? Maybe they work with businesses that they would like to refer out that very specific process to someone like yourself or someone in your network, or they just want to continue the relationship. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best way I think it's is two ways. I'm available for those that aren't in the US. I'm available on WhatsApp. That's usually the best way to catch me somewhere in the world is on WhatsApp. And my WhatsApp number is just +1 843 888-829-2039. So WhatsApp's really great. And when you reach out to me on WhatsApp, just make a little note of who you are, what you're looking for, so I can make the connection there. So
Dr. Koch, thanks so much for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. I can't wait to share this with our listeners. Please, if you're listening, share this with someone that you know needs to listen to this conversation. Maybe they're with a family business, they have a business, they're seeking to start one. Leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
great. Thank you so much, Jay, for inviting me. It's been delightful.
Thank you.